So you mentioned who these 20th century rabbis are. So what did each of them write, and what do they have to say about this question?
Right. So what I thought was actually most interesting, which I'll start out with, is the two really bigger halachic authorities that I found who wrote about it,
Hmm.
which was Rav Wosner and Shevet HaLevi,
Hmm.
and Rav Moshe Sternbuch in Moadim Bizmanim. So both of them also do not seem so happy with men drinking to the point of drunkenness,
Oh.
or possibly men drinking at all,
Uh-huh.
which I found fascinating.
Yeah.
So we'll put it, so I'll explain as we go in. But so those are the two who discuss women specifically.
Hmm.
And Shevet HaLevi says women don't have an obligation to get drunk. And he bases this on the Gemara in Ketubot that we saw, and on that
Hmm.
Braita, that when women get
On
drunk,
the
they
four
behave
cups.
rudely.
On the one, two, three, four
Yes,
cups. Uh-huh.
yes. But then he continues on to
Yeah.
basically also say there are places in the Gemara where the Gemara discusses men also not behaving so well when they get very drunk. And really, the story, the Rabbi Zera drinking together on
Memorable
Purim,
Purim. Memorable Purim.
memorable Purim, whether that's something that tells you, oh, yes, this is how you fulfill this mitzvah by going to excess, or
Mm-hmm.
no, this is not how you, or we should, pull back, don't get to the point where you're
Mm-hmm.
going to murder someone and black out drunk, and, or something in the middle,
Mm-hmm.
or completely rejects it. He says, really, we have to question what does adalo yada mean? Meaning, he doesn't question whether men should drink. He questions what is really the point of the discussion, which is how much, how
Uh-huh.
far,
Mm-hmm.
which is what most rabbis get stuck on. But he says women don't have to drink at all. They don't have an obligation.
Uh-huh.
He doesn't say they're not allowed to drink at all.
Uh-huh. So they're exempt, but they can still fulfill it.
No, it doesn't seem, no, he doesn't want women to get drunk
Oh,
because
okay.
as you've discussed, meaning he says the Gemara in Ketubot basically tells us women shouldn't be getting drunk. So his was, women behave lewdly and therefore they can't get drunk.
Hmm.
And he seems to also not want men to get to a point where they'll behave lewdly. And we have Moshe Sternbuch, who also, he says, women are not obligated to get drunk, even though they're obligated in all the other mitzvot of Purim. So then he has
Mm.
to figure out why is this. So he
Uh-huh.
says the first thing again is that ein derech nashim b'shichrut, that the way
Mm.
of women is not to get drunk. Women aren't people who get drunk,
Mm.
right? And because they don't normally get drunk, therefore there's more of a risk of them, that it will lead to bad behavior and lewd behavior, big sins,
Hmm.
very big sins. That's what he says.
Hmm.
So he says that's the first part, but he says the second part is that today's feasts don't normally include alcohol, which is why women don't normally get drunk, meaning, and
Mm.
it's not 100% true, right? Some people do, but not
Right.
in the same excess of, when you watch a Hollywood movie and see the Vikings, or certainly the Greeks and the Romans and right? It's not on a normal way when you go to a palace. You
Mm.
don't want to get that drunk because of that. Like, it's also really not necessarily part of, right? He says, we also have to explore what is the mitzvah exactly. But he says, like, it's just not the way of feasts nowadays.
Mm.
And he adds that if it wasn't for all the other halachic authorities that say there is a mitzvah to get very drunk, um, he doesn't see why. He says he has a good reason why men should not be scrupulous with this mitzvah.